All right. So, next, and our last session, we have Professor Dr. Zubaidah Zainal Abidin from the Putra Business School UPM to share with us on commercial crime and money laundering topic.
Okay. Hi. Good afternoon to all. All right. Oh, okay. I guess the last session supposedly is like looking to the definition of commercial crime and money laundering. It sounds basic, right? But actually, when you try to find the right definition, it's not easy actually. Okay, but yes, after looking at many definitions, I sort of come up with a very simple one, and hopefully, it's easy to remember. Okay, let us look at this. Commercial crime. We look at commercial crime, and then we try to zoom in into money laundering. All right. Okay. So here, a very simple definition of what is commercial crime. So basically, if you look at this, these are crimes that are committed by legitimate entrepreneurs, okay, investors and corporation. So when we talk about crime, they are actually, generally when we talk about commercial crime, they are in a way divided into two. Okay, they are classified under crimes of production, right, with the basic intention of the offender to reduce costs. Now, the other one is crime of distribution, where we look at it, the offender's basic intention is to increase revenue. All right, so at the end of the day, say for example, if you look at crimes of production, so for example, we have got cases like illegal dumping of toxic waste to avoid the cost of proper disposal, or violate safety standards to save money on equipment. All right. So on the other side of it, we look at it, crime of distribution. You have cases where the offender falsify data on a contract to pad the bill or con customers with worthless product guarantees. So basically, if you look at it, right, I will trying to explain, not to say, try to share with you. When you talk about commercial crime, yeah, commercial crime is very broad. So what I'm trying to do here is to show you here, like a bigger picture. You can see there, these are all commercial crime. These are all commercial crime. And you can see that they are overlapping, most of it. You name it, it can come in various types. So such as corporate crime. And you talk about white collar crime, is actually comes under corporate crime. Yeah, you can also have blue collar crime, because if white collar crime, you are referring to the professionals, yeah, that's wearing sort of white collar shirts, or into the office. But if you look at the blue collar crime, then it will be those referring to those the production, those production level, those wearing blue shirts or jacket, whatever it is. Then you have got the financial crime, you got the environmental crime, you got economics crime, you got property crime, you name it, right? You name it. So, but looking at all this crime, yeah, can you get the list will be is not exhaustive. You have more and more depending on the nature of the crime. So if you look again, you go deeper into it, you can see that these are the activities. Okay, the activities which can fall in any of this category. So for example, you have got the Ponzi scheme, they got the bribery, the forgery, the scam, right? Insider trading, tax evasion, fraud, cybercrime, and theft, and CBT, right? Criminal breach of trust, corruption. And I purposely highlight here in yellow box, money laundering, indicating that money laundering is one of those unlawful activities, that can comes in, and it can fall under economic crime, it can fall under financial crime. Okay, so basically, if you look at overall commercial crime. So there is, the offender, right? There's looking into the aspect of, what do you call it? There's some element of deceit, concealment, or violation of trust. So, but the sad part is they are, in whatever situation, they are always victims of the crime, right? The victims. So, which really affects, people like you and me, all of us. Okay, it affects the community, affects, even your relatives, your friends, and in like in our day-to-day life sometimes. So it's something for us to realize that crime is everywhere. Okay, now so here, trying to show you the extensiveness of when you talk about commercial crime. Okay, so you can see it's very broad. And sometimes you look at it again, when you talk about money laundering, for example, which I'm going to share later on, it does touch a bit on fraud. Yeah, it touch a bit on insider trading sometimes, touch a bit on corruption, on bribery. Okay, so that's why in any of these activities, okay, when it comes to the rules and regulation, the act itself sometimes they overlap, right? Depending on how they dissect, right, the activities of the crime. Okay, so again, after looking at all these things, okay, right, in the broadest perspective, now, well, some or other, I managed to sort of find out, look into the characteristic, the common characteristic of commercial crime. Yeah, so this is some or other through my reading. I just managed to extract this from the Department of Justice Canada. Of course, in Malaysia, we have got our own criminal investigation department, right? Commercial Crime Investigation Department, which is usually in the Royal Malaysia Police. Okay, so there are many definitions. Of course, there are many information on this, but maybe we can just focus on these seven common characteristic of commercial crime. Okay, so basically whatever that I've shown in the previous slide, they do have this element, they do have this characteristic. Yeah, so basically commercial crimes involve the production of goods and services which are inherently legal, but whose method of production and or distribution are illegal. All right. And the second characteristic is commercial crimes, they create exchanges within a normal business setting that are multilateral, okay, produces exchanges that are also superficially voluntary with an involuntary hidden aspect, all right? And these commercial crimes also leads to clear victims, okay, by virtue of involving fraud against workers, suppliers, customers, or in such thing as environmental offenses against the public as a whole, all right? So it also invokes, in principle, unambiguous morality since fraud is involved. So it calls for punishment that logically should involve restitution for misappropriated or damaged property. So these are the common characteristics. Of course, the list will be, there'll be more to it, all right? But if you look at it carefully, if you look at all this, what do you call it, illegal act, it does have this characteristic. If you look at bribery, forgery, scams, tax evasion, fraud, now this is more towards cyber crime. It does have all these characteristics. Okay, right. Having sort of having that sort of idea about commercial crime and looking to the broad spectrum of commercial crime. So let us zoom into money laundering. You know, the yellow box which I showed in that many illegal act. All right. So what is money laundering actually? All right. Now, money laundering is very specific in the sense that they focus on proceeds of an unlawful activity. What do you do with it, right? So that becomes laundering, money laundering, and it is covered, right? What is money laundering is covered in our own Anti-Money Laundering and Anti-Terrorism Financing Act 2001, which specifically mentioned about these four, right? So money laundering is when a person who engage directly or indirectly, all right, in a transaction that involves proceeds of an unlawful activity, or a person who acquires, possesses, disguises, transfers, convert, exchanges, carries, disposes of, or uses proceeds of an unlawful activity, or a person who removes from or bring into Malaysia proceeds of an unlawful activity. And the last one, a person who conceals, disguises, or impedes the establishment of the true nature, origin, location, movement, disposition, title, rights with respect to or ownership of proceeds of an unlawful activity. So if you look, the keywords here are proceeds of an unlawful activity. Now, the word proceeds from, that proceeds of an unlawful activity, where does the proceed comes, okay? Then money laundering is when you have it in front of you, right? How does these people engage, acquire, or remove, or conceal these proceeds? So where these proceeds comes from, that's where you look at the other types of crime. For example, by way of corruption, bribery, whichever channel or source that comes in. That's why when you look at money laundering, you have to look at the bigger picture where commercial crimes are sort of it comes under commercial crime. Because when you talk about money laundering, when you talk about proceeds, where does the proceed comes from? Okay. All right. We move on. Okay. All right. So having the proceeds, from this unlawful activity, all right. So usually there are three steps in which this money laundering process, how does it works, okay? So basically it's like converting dirty money into clean money. This is what it means in very layman terms, okay? So first you have got the placement, and then you have got the layering, and then you have got the integration. So these are the terms that we use in money laundering. So what do you mean by placement? So they put this proceeds from unlawful activity, they put this dirty money into the legitimate financial system, all right? And the next step, they call it layering, which they conceal the source of the money through a series of transactions and bookkeeping tricks, okay? So this is all the paperwork, right? The recording part. And the integration is where the laundered money is withdrawn from the legitimate account to be used for whatever purpose the criminals have in mind. So you have got these three steps, okay, in money laundering process: placement, layering, and integration. So in other words, if you look at it from dirty money, how can it becomes a legitimate kind of sources of fund, right? So there are many ways, money laundering variants in how they actually turn the dirty money into clean money, so-called. All right. So these are the terms they use in money laundering. They call it fronts. Okay, fronts. So fronts is actually a situation, a process whereby the cash. If, for example, you got a restaurant, cash-based business, for example, a restaurant, they might inflate their daily cash receipt, yeah, to funnel illegal cash through its own bank account. So you inflate, right, the cash receipt, and where does the money come from, all right? So all this, they call this method or variant as fraud. The other term they use is smurfing. So what do you mean by smurfing? Now, this is the criminal breaks up large chunks of cash into multiple small deposits, yeah, often spreading them over many different accounts to avoid detection. So this is another way of doing it, all right? And of course, the last one is, I think we heard this is very common, currency exchanges, where you have got wire transfer. Nowadays, everything is online, right? You can transfer online, wire transfer, and also mules. Okay, they use the term mules, where you have got cash smugglers, right, who sneak large amount of cash across borders and deposit them in foreign accounts where money laundering enforcement is less strict. Yeah. So here you have the different ways in which they can go through that process, from placement to layering and also to integration. So that is basically very briefly what money laundering is all about. So the keyword here is always proceed from unlawful activity. Now, and then we look into anti-money laundering. What is this? What is anti-money laundering? Is actually they are just referring to the laws, the regulation and procedure intended to prevent criminals from disguising illegally obtained fund as legitimate income. So basically that is what anti-money laundering is all about, is bringing all the regulation, the laws and the measures, the procedures for you to curb, curb money laundering. Okay. So, of course, in Malaysia, for example, we have our own act, right? We have got our own act, but at the same time, I think all of us are aware that money laundering is of concern worldwide, and of course, basically, you have the international standards on AML, right, and also the extend it to for the CFT, which means combating financing terrorism. So basically, if you at the international level, you have got the FATF, and of course in Malaysia we have got our own AML CFT Act. All right. So basically in the Act, right? In the Act is they provide the legal in Malaysia as far as the money laundering is concerned. We do have our own legal and regulatory framework. We have our own in the Act. We have got preventive measures for reporting institution, and we also have got financial intelligence and law enforcement agencies coming in, and of course we do have domestic and international cooperation in mitigating money laundering. Okay. So let us have a look. Okay, this is how, I'm sure all of us are aware of this. We have got our own Anti-Money Laundering Act. In short, we call it AMLA. All right, in short, we call it AMLA. So basically in this act, will in a way regulate, okay, will regulate, provide information on, identifying the offenses of money laundering, which I have explained the 6 different where the offender actually engage or conceal anything to do with proceeds of unlawful activities. All right, before if you look at the title of the act, it also extended to proceeds of unlawful activities. So AMLA covers to the extent. So they're very specific, right? So in this act also, right, of course, with this AMLA act, you do have others bodies coming in. For example, like in Malaysia, we have the ministry appointed Bank Negara Malaysia as the competent authority that is given the the authority to handle or to look into money laundering cases. Okay. And of course, once Bank Negara Malaysia has been appointed as a competent authority, so they come up with comprehensive guidelines, okay, guidance to assist, the reporting institution, especially in implementing the measures to curb money laundering. Okay. So of course, this act also covers extend to the forfeiture of property involved or derived from money laundering, right? As well as whatever, if you use the money, this proceeds from unlawful authority to buy assets. So this act also covers to the extent on how the authorities can forfeit the properties purchased using illegal money. All right. So just to share again, right? So these are some of the offences which has been prosecuted under AMLA, right, for the past few years. So you can see as you go along, you try to flash back those balloons which I've shown in the second slide. So it covers everything actually. So you look into the criminal breach of trust, accepting gratification, offering and receiving bribes, illegal deposit taking, insider trading, theft and smuggling, carrying on unlicensed financial services, falsifying document, tax evasion. So these are the offences prosecuted under AMLA, right? So so you can see that it is it falls under commercial crime actually, right? Most of it is under commercial crime, but when you dissect further, then it can be it will overlaps, and so once you overlap, sometimes the act, the rules and regulation also overlaps. Yeah. Okay. So let us look at the some of the cases of commercial crime and, of course, money laundering in the recent cases that you have in Malaysia. Okay. Okay, this is a very, very recent case, I guess, yeah, this is from the newspaper cutting. So hopefully, I think it's okay to share it here, just to sort of explain, the seriousness of money laundering cases. It can be a big sum or a small sum, as long as it involves the proceeds of unlawful activities, then it is still categorized as money laundering. So if you look at this case, it is a big sum of money, but again, just to share with you, it can also happen. Recently, also a case whereby it involves a company secretary, right, who have his own secretarial firm, and somehow or other, one of the clients appoint her as a nominee director, as a nominee director, and then at the same time requesting her to open a bank account. So at the end of the day, what happened is, when this particular company secretary opened a bank account, they refused to be named as a check signatory. So the company secretary appoint her father to be the check signatory. And usually when you look at it, within 6 months, there's a lot of money coming in, right, to the bank account, being and then all of a sudden, within few weeks or days, it has been remitted out. So here the issue is, it can be, the money laundering issues can be, a big sum, and can be like involve small sum or big sum. As far as it can even happen to a small company secretarial firm, and because of that, of course, the bank negara comes in, right, to investigate. The way I look at it, it's a pity that the company secretary's father is being roped in, and end up in jail for money laundering, for something that the father doesn't know. Just sign the check and that's it. All right. So here the issue here is, the law does not recognize ignorance is no issue. So with this money, with this AMLA, with this Bank Negara being appointed as a competent authority, they laid down a lot of they provide guidance on how to actually mitigate money laundering. Okay, so they have to go through the process of risk profiling, the customer due diligence, and also submission of the suspicious trading transaction report. So but I sort of, when I look at it, because I'm supposed to sort of look into the basic of commercial crime and also looking into money laundering and anti-money laundering. So maybe I can just share, look into the seriousness of money laundering. So here you got a case, according to the news of the facts of the case, it says that she's the first person to be charged in Malaysia with money laundering and was fined under 6 million and jailed for 3 years. Right, so the facts of the case says she was a former executive director of Sophia Pharmaceutical, was charged with 8 counts of money laundering involving 41.3 million. She was also accused of 7 counts of receiving proceeds from unlawful activities using a joint bank account and the accounts of her company with 5 other firms. She was also charged with 10 counts of abating her former employee, right, the name here, in forging 10 promissory notes worth US 12 million. The offences was committed in June 2003. So this is based on the case, but if you look, it takes quite some time, right? Many years until it is being convicted, I guess. So this is one very current case, which I think is still hot from the oven, I think. All right, just let me just ask another one case. Yeah, this is I can say that this is an environmental crime, right? Environmental crime because it involves everybody, and again, it's so current. It's so current. It's also come out from the newspaper. It says Malaysia arrests 4 plant managers after water pollution leads to supply cut in Selangor and KL. I think this involves touch everybody, right? There's a shortage, supply of water. So as I mentioned earlier, commercial crime, money laundering, some or other, right? The victims can be you and me. Okay, so as you can see here, it's also from the newspapers, facts of the case. All right, national authorities on Saturday, which is you're talking about 1-2 months ago, remanded for 6 days 4 factory managers who are suspected of involvement in a water pollution case that caused water supply to be cut to millions of people in Selangor and KL, Kuala Lumpur. Now, the Selangor Chief Minister said that the factory in Rawang district will be demolished as it doesn't have planning permission to be built. Yeah. Now, media report says the vehicle maintenance factory alleged poor use industrial oil into drains that flow into Sungai Gong, one of the rivers where its water is treated and later piped to homes, industries, and offices. Okay, so again, just these are 2 very high-profile kind of cases. So I guess at the end of the day, let us see. And it's a very short. You only have got half an hour, so that much I'm able to share, right? Okay. So these are some of the key takeaways when we look into money laundering. Money laundering is the illegal process of making dirty money appear legitimate instead of ill-gotten. Criminals use a wide variety of money laundering techniques to make illegally obtained funds appear clean, and online banking and cryptocurrencies have made it easier for criminals to transfer and withdraw money without detection. Yeah. So as for anti-money laundering, okay, you have got anti-money laundering, AML, 6 to deter. Okay, you are talking about the laws and regulation. 6 to deter criminals by making it harder for them to hide ill-gotten money. Anti-money AML regulations require financial institution to monitor customers' transaction and report on suspicious financial activity. And also, AML regulation requires banks and other financial institutions that issue credit or accept customers' deposits to follow rules and ensure they are not aiding money laundering. All right. So I guess with that, I end my presentation. Yeah, I know it's like very short, okay, but that's much I can share, and hopefully it gives some light to, to in a way understand or to know more commercial crime in a broader sense and zooming into money laundering. I think that's it. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.
Hi, thank you,
Yeah, hi.
Professor. Hi. So
Yeah,
we will now move on to the Q&A session.
all right.
All right. So the first question we have is money laundering. Sorry, before that, Professor, can you just click the stop sharing screen on your
All
computer?
right, sorry. Okay, I will.
Okay.
All right, that's it.
Okay. So um, the first question:
Yeah,
money laundering topic is getting hotter nowadays, not
yeah,
only within the organization, but as well as individual per se. And most of the cases are related to high profiler. What is your
yes.
view on this, and which agency is authorized to give training and awareness regarding money laundering?
Okay, thank you. All right, I think I did mention earlier. As far as Malaysia is concerned, we have got our own AMLA, which is the act that governs money laundering. Okay. At the same time, Bank Negara Malaysia has been appointed as the competent authority, right? The sole authority to look into money laundering activities. Okay, so what happened here with this appointment as a competent authority? So Bank Negara Malaysia has got the authority, right? So to implement all the measures to curb, to mitigate money laundering. So you have, if you Google Bank Negara Malaysia website, they have got a very comprehensive list of guidance on how to go about in mitigating money laundering. So first, I think initially what happened is they have got this process where I think first thing they identify reporting institution. So this requirement doesn't say that it has to be a listed company or non-listed or even SMEs. It applies across the board. Okay, so with that guide, so they even they provide training for reporting institution. So again, you can see a lot of what do you call it training being offered by Bank Negara Malaysia to assist. When you look into reporting institution, there are many categories, and some of them are financial, some of them are non-financial. So they even touch professionals, yeah, like accountants, lawyers, company secretary. So in that, they call it this policy document issued by Bank Negara Malaysia. They even lead you, right, the process of initially with risk profiling, and then they go to the customer's due diligence process, and then they have got this all compliance requirement, and then they go to the last process, which is the suspicious transaction report. So that is the turning point. You have to go through all the process, and then in that process, if you feel there's still some doubts in that transaction, then you proceed to fill up the STF, the suspicious transaction report. That once you submit to Bank Negara, so it's on the Bank Negara's court they will start with investigation. So the reason why the government, I should say, that reach out to the companies, especially because if you look at the provisions in the Companies Act, it's mentioned that every company must have at least one company secretary. So I think the rationale for that, for identifying professionals as a reporting institution, because we are the nearest to the as far as to our clients or even to the company, you know. So hoping that with this kind of mechanism being provided, we can in a way mitigate the situation, right? So we can in a way once you do the risk profiling, and of course there are lots of procedures involved and some forms to be filled in. So if we feel that there's something suspicious, we can take immediate action rather than allowing to sort of go on and things happen, and you can see the impact on us. All right, I hope I answered that question.
Yes. Okay. The next question is, in overseas, there are many cases revealed that many genuine businesses are actually being controlled by the underground groups, and these genuine businesses are being used to do money laundering activities. Do you think this happened in Malaysia? What is your comment on this?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
The question is, at overseas, there are many cases that is being reviewed, stating that many genuine businesses are actually being controlled by the underground groups to carry out the money laundering activities. So, do you think that this happened in Malaysia? And what is your comment on this?
Wow, that is quite a very, what should I say, high profile question. I I don't think so. I have the answer. I'm not sure what do you mean by underground activities. I
I
don't know.
think what they
Are
mean
they?
is
Mm,
by those group of people who are carrying out illegal activities, and they have been controlling the genuine businesses to carry out the money laundering activity, so that their income from the illegal businesses can
mm.
be legalized.
Yeah, exactly. That's what money laundering is all about.
Yes.
Okay, converting dirty money to clean money, right?
Yes.
So I guess it happens everywhere. It's
Mhm.
just that maybe we are not aware to what
Yes.
extent, to what extent. But I think it happens. It's there,
Mhm.
right? It's there all the time. It to me like this at every corners of the world, right? But I think recently, if you look at the world, what do you call it, the world ranking, they have got this issued by one organization. I can't remember the name of the organization. Where they issue report where they list down, right, all these companies, no, sorry, not companies, countries.
Mhm.
They rank it in terms of those like high risk kind of money laundering activities. I think if I'm not mistaken, Malaysia is not that far way down, right? It's somewhere which I think I should say is quite serious in the sense.
Okay.
But I did not prod further. Yeah, I did not prod further on that issue. But I guess the whole idea, right, of I'm sure Malaysia also joined with other countries in the world trying to curb money laundering, because everybody knows it's really a big issue, right? Somehow or other, the only measures that we can do is to curb. So that's why I think the government is trying to reach out to as many professionals, to many people as possible to report on money laundering. Okay, I think, but to what call it, to
Totally like
erase
bring,
it,
yeah,
to
yes.
erase it. Yeah, I think it's not possible, but at least we can
Yes.
mitigate. We can mitigate it. Yeah.
Okay.
So I hope I'm able to to respond to that. Okay. Honestly, I'm not sure when you talk about underground. I'm not sure. Are you referring to some kind of organization, right? What do you call it? Those organization which is not registered with the CCM or something. I'm not sure. Okay.
Another question from Mr. Aaron. Is
Yeah.
Section 17A a predicate offences under the second schedule of the Anti-Money Laundering, Anti-Terrorism Financing and Proceeds of Unlawful Activities Act? If not, are plans underway to include it as a predicate offence?
Okay. All right. This is I think I did mention earlier. When you look at all the commercial crimes, the elements, the category, the different types of illegal act, I should say. Okay. They are all like intertwined. They overlap each other. Okay. If you notice that. Okay. Uh, um, let me see, how do I put it? So when you have that, all right, uh, can you give me a minute? Jap, jap. Ellie, I can hear you. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry. All right, so we're talking about Section 17A. We're talking about corporate liability, all right? Now, when it comes to money laundering, okay, you see, it can even involved in various, the risk factors for money laundering is this. You can either happens to the risk factor can be individual, can be companies. The risk factor can also be what do you call it, transaction, pertaining to the transaction, pertaining to the product, the services, and also to the location of the company. So these are all the risk factors. So when you talk about corporate liability, so when you look into company, if you can recall, um, when it comes to penalties, okay, when it comes to penalties of for money laundering or whatever activities, commercial crime, there is a penalties imposed on the company itself, because the company is treated like a legal entity, right? So as I said earlier, when you talk about corporate liability, it comes under MACC, right? So when you
Yes.
talk about money laundering, it comes under AMLA. Okay, so there are many acts actually. So, and if you look carefully, they are all, some or other, they are interrelated. Okay, they overlap, they intertwine with each other. So I think when you talk about proceeds from unlawful activity, and I think I mentioned this, when you talk about proceeds, the word proceeds, where does it comes from? Right? So it can comes from many sources. It can comes from bribery. It can comes from insider trading, for that matter. It can comes from any of those. So this is why commercial, when it talks about commercial crime, and money laundering is just one of it. It's just one aspect of it. But again, it you have to sort of open up.
Mhm.
And of course, when you got a case on money laundering, for that matter, right? And I just have discussed two cases. There are many more. But if you look at, if you know, it happens when you read the newspaper, at least one case on money laundering being reported, right? So if you look at it carefully, it doesn't involve money laundering per se, right? You bring in, sometimes you have illicit the company have got no license, but there's a sort of solicit fund from the public. So this is also a crime, right? So where does the money come from? So that's why it is sort of, the flow is there. I think some or other, if you read whether it's MACC Act or whether it's AMLA or whether even under the, some other penal code whatsoever, you bound to find the word proceeds from unlawful activity. It is always there. Yep, you can always look up for that. So some or other it will. They have to work hand in hand, in the sense that you cannot just look at AMLA in isolation. It
Okay.
doesn't work that way. Okay.
Okay, with that, thank you, Professor Doctor. Thank you for your time. Understand that
Right.
you were rushing from another webinar just now. Still, thank you
Exactly.
very much to
Thank
speak with
you.
us today and answering all
Yeah.
the questions.
Yeah, you're
So
most welcome. Thank you so much
thank
for
you.
having me.
Thanks. All right.